I feel like Ivy's like getting credit for this hand, but he folded.
I used to always think he was full of like, what do I do now? I'm probably
And
getting flopped on TV.
In the pantheon of poker's most iconic moments, few hands have captivated the imagination of players and fans quite like Tom Dwan's audacious stone-cold bluff against Phil Ivey on high-stakes poker. For years, this hand has been dissected and analyzed by the poker community, with much of the focus centered on Ivey's legendary ability to sense deception. But in a revealing Q&A session, Dwan himself shattered many of the assumptions that have surrounded this hand for over a decade. The hand itself was a masterclass in fearless aggression. In a pot that swelled to almost $700,000, Dwan held 8-9 of spades, Phil Ivey had a6 of diamonds. What unfolded was 3 streets of relentless betting from Dwan with absolutely nothing against Ivey's ace-high flush draw. When the river came, Ivey had connected with a measly pair of 6s. Dwan, still holding 9-high, launched a chunky 6-figure bet. The table was silent as Ivey entered the tank, seemingly smelling something amiss. For years, the narrative surrounding this hand has been one of Ivey's near supernatural instincts. Commentators and analysts have marveled at how close Ivey came to making one of the greatest hero calls in televised poker history. But Tom Dwan saw something entirely different playing out across the felt. In the Q&A session, Run It Once's Mikey Stotz raised the subject of the perceived credit Ivey had received over the years.
somebody brought up, when we mentioned that we were having you, some of your famous hands were coming in as people wanted to talk about. And one that just got posted that you saw the video where Ivey, you bluff Ivey, and he makes a pair of 6s. And I feel like Ivey's like getting credit for this hand. And like, yeah, he thought a while, but he folded. So like everyone's like, being like, oh, Ivey smelled something, he knew something was up.
Tom Dwan's response was stunning in its candor. For many years, Tom Dwan believed that Ivey was simply posturing with no real intention of calling the bet, aka what's called Hollywooding in poker. Even more surprising, Dwan revealed that he suspected Ivey might have actually been considering an all-in rebluff and not a call.
I used to always think he was full of shit. I now like slightly weaken my position only in the last 2 years or something, but I had always thought he was just thinking of shoving because his hand was a reasonable hand to shove. And I don't think it's wrong that he might have smelt something, like he might have thought I was bluffing way more than normal or whatever. I still don't think he was, because I could easily be bluffing like
with a better hand, yeah.
While the entire world was convinced that Ivey was agonizing over whether to make a hero call, Dwan saw through the performance. They had played each other extensively, understood each other's tendencies, and had developed an intricate dance of deception and counter-deception. The key insight is that these two players knew each other too well for simple theatrics to work in spots where thousands of big blinds were at stake.
I think it's right that he, like, sometimes Ivey would have reads on me, sometimes I'd have him on him. A lot of times, especially live, I think he was getting more than I was off him, but it was like maybe 60-40, not 70-30.
Sure.
Like, definitely times I was taxing him and stuff.
Dwan praised Ivey as the best at live reads he has ever seen, particularly in his prime, and acknowledged that these streets were Ivey's, the live streets.
I still think he in his prime was the best at live reads I've ever seen, at least in, I don't know about in life, but at least in poker. And so I think he probably had something on me that hand, but also like.
But he didn't pull the trigger.
Well,
so
you said SP Rugby earlier, and like I think there were guys like that didn't want to admit. Like I kind of knew these streets were Ivey's, the live street.
But Dwan also believed he had advantages in other areas, specifically in understanding math and frequency-based plays, areas where game theory and balance ranges matter more than gut instinct. What makes Tom Dwan's analysis particularly intriguing is his observation about how Phil Ivey sometimes trusted his reads too much.
I don't think he, times where he went with his reads a little too much, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a hand that GTO Wizard would say is a close fold, he would call if he had a read and be right, or vice versa, but this kind of spot would have been a pretty ridiculous. So I think my suspicion is he was like, like, what do I do now? I'm probably getting flopped on TV. Tom, you.
Dwan also revealed an important detail about the dynamics between him and Ivey in different pot sizes.
Ivey and I played each other a lot. We wouldn't try to Hollywood each other if we're shoving over 80 big. We would occasionally Hollywood if it's 500 or 1,000 big blinds. You just got it, because the reality is you need to think longer.
Right.
So if he thought 2 minutes longer than what I would have thought was normal, I still wouldn't necessarily be hero call. I generally would be like,
okay, yeah,
putting a ton of thought into it, because that was the kind of thing we'd both balance some. Right. In other words, for the sake of the game, for the sake of the other people there, we wouldn't balance it for 50 big blinds. Like,
right, 100 big blind cap game or something. It's getting in, and
right. If the other guy gets 0.1 big blinds from you because you didn't balance perfect, so what? Just don't be a douchebag or whatever, right? When it's 1,000 big blinds deep, you really giving away something. It might not only be 10x, it might be like you're giving away 50 big blinds if you up. Yeah, and so if you spend 2 minutes extra, everyone's like, all right, fine, whatever.
To fully appreciate the tragedy of Phil Ivey's fold, we must look at the hand through the lens of game theory optimal play, contrasting it with the exploitative style of 2010. So why couldn't Ivey call? The answer lies in the ace of diamonds. In GTO, when facing a triple barrel bluff, you want to call with hands that unblock bluffs and block value. Ivey's pair of sixes does not block hands like kings, queens, tens, or jack-9. Crucially, Phil Ivey had the ace of diamonds, which is a disaster. The most natural bluff for Dwan to have on this board is the nut flush draw that missed. By holding the ace of diamonds, Ivey makes it impossible for Dwan to have those hands. Meanwhile, Dwan's hand 8-9 of spades was the perfect bluffing candidate. It does not block the ace of diamonds or any diamond, and it also does not block Ivey's folding range. By shoving for 65% pot, Dwan made Ivey indifferent. A solver might mix calls here with King X or Queen X, but with a pair of sixes, a solver would almost certainly fold 100% of the time. So what can we poker players learn from Dwan's revelation? Firstly, that poker at the highest level is far more nuanced than most observers realize. Second, that even among poker's elite, there are specialists. Ivey excelled at live reads, while Dwan focused on mathematical balance and frequency. Third, and perhaps most importantly, that the best players in the world can disagree fundamentally about what's happening in a hand even years after the fact. In the end, this hand stands eternal. It is one of the Mona Lisa of poker bluffs. Beautiful, enigmatic, and forever open to interpretation, now enriched by the voice of the artist himself.